Let's take a look at some charts on GRIN from this week's article on Brave New Coin. So GRIN joins the pantheon of privacy coins. GRIN actually has the most privacy capabilities when compared to all the other coins, with the exception of Monero. Monero is the same. It's on-chain default privacy. This is in reality the only true privacy coin. And why do I say that? It's because if privacy is optional, it's shut off by exchanges, it's not used by most people, it's easier to track. And I want to like GRIN. I think most people who are into Bitcoin maximalism want to like GRIN. It wasn't a pre-mine, there's no founder's reward, there's no ICO. They did everything right. All the dev work gets funded through donations, which is both commendable and dangerous if long-term they run out of money, which they won't anytime soon. But just looking at all that together and looking at the price chart, what it comes down to for me is just the inflation is too high right now. Inflation sitting at around 60%, 61%. That's going to continue to go down over time, but it's just not as sexy as DeFi yield farming, rebasing, XYZ returns. The other problem with GRIN is it's not really listed anywhere. Similar to Monero, really. Monero, if you think about it, it's not really listed on many exchanges. And I don't expect many default privacy coins to pop up anytime soon because they have a hard time getting listed. It could be for regulatory reasons, regulatory purposes. They're kind of squeezed out of the exchange picture completely because they either do or don't meet regulatory restrictions in certain countries for certain reasons. So if we compare everything metric-wise with all these coins, GRIN's basically at the bottom of anything that you can measure. It actually has more transactions per day than Pivx. That's about all you can say, really. The transaction volume and active addresses are obscured, just like Monero. Again, that's a measure of privacy. If you can't see certain things on chain, then it's a privacy coin, like just by default, right? Like it's obscured. All these others, that's why I say privacy capable, not necessarily privacy coins, but the other coins or any coin always loves to add, these stacks of DeFi, ICOs, security tokens, privacy. All these coins like to do all these things. That doesn't mean they all do them well, obviously. So I like GRIN. I think everybody likes GRIN. The issue is the inflation. Really, that's the main thing. And if we look at some of the other on-chain stuff, this is inflation and mean difficulty of, it's a proof of work network. So it requires miners to mine it. It's ASIC resistant, the algorithm, the two algorithms that are used. There was a GRIN developer who successfully used an ASIC to mine some blocks. So it's not like ASICs are out of the picture completely. And that's good and bad. I mean, it's kind of hand in hand. If you look at the Bitcoin network, for example, hash rate's at all-time high. There's a ton of ASICs on the chain. It's almost all ASICs. ASICs are continually produced and miners buy them expecting to get a return on investment, right? So at the end of the day, it does help network security if hash rate keeps increasing. The issue with ASICs over time is that generally people with the most money have the most mining power, and that just centralizes the network over time. So to see difficulty dropping this quickly over the past year kind of suggests that miners don't see a return on investment anytime soon with GRIN, and this is all hobbyist mining. There was probably a hype in the beginning, and that hype is long since gone. And the inflation is still here at around 60%, like I said. And mean difficulty is just, some random number or whatever. But the point is it's definitely way down mining-wise than it was in 2019. Now, it's definitely easier to mine than it was in 2019 based on the difficulty. But the reward is also down because the inflation is down. So you kind of have to pick all that into the picture here. If you look at transactions per day and transaction fees, you can see transactions per day just fell off a table. I mean, what this looks like to me is there was a mining pool or several mining pools that had payouts every week, every so often. And then that mining pool or a series of mining pools just stopped mining GRIN, and this is like what's left, right? Right. These are the few people who are still mining, or the few pools who are still mining. So it's basically a third or less of what it was in 2019. Now this may survive long term for all the reasons I mentioned earlier in the video, but right now it just looks sad. I wouldn't call it a dead coin, but it's a sad coin for sure. If we look at just one of the repos, there's clearly activity still on the main repo anyway. So there's definitely dev work being done and tracked updates being produced, hard forks being planned. So all this stuff means that the coin won't go away anytime soon, but the price really does not look good. I mean, when you're pushing all-time lows as we shift into technicals, that's rough with 60% inflation, because this will likely just keep bleeding. And bleeding is the most bearish possible trend because it doesn't shake anybody out. It just silently keeps dumping like it did here. This is what you want to see. You want to see dramatic 50%, 60%, 80%, whatever it is. You want to see quick and dramatic, because this shakes out as many people as possible, gets everyone's attention. It gets buyers and sellers at the table. The sellers panic because they bought higher. The buyers see value opportunity, and that's really better for the price at the end of the day, long term. Quick volatility to the downside. And you can see it's been ranging, surprisingly, really, over the past 6 to 8 months. You know, if you look at all the other coins, you know, March, everything dropped, okay. But since March, it hasn't recovered really at all. And now it's even below the March low. So this just looks bearish from every possible angle I can even think of. There's no bullish divergence here. Volume is still very high. Emotions are raw. Fear is gripping this chart 6 ways to Sunday. And it's below the VPVR, the volume profile. So you can see it had this consolidation period. Lots of volume in here relative to earlier periods. So what happened was, you know, price went down and then people just started dumping. That's my guess. Buyers and sellers reached an equilibrium here, but in reality, there were more sellers than buyers. That's for sure. So now on the way up, the price is gonna have to deal with this consolidation zone. So that was GRIN USD, and then GRIN BTC. You know, again with 60% inflation, it's just real simple supply and demand. I don't expect this to do amazingly well anytime soon. Probably not within the next 2 years. If GRIN has a bullish breakout within the next 2 years, that would surprise me. Just because it's competing with a coin that has a 1.8% or less inflation over the next 2 years. So something drastic fundamental would have to happen for GRIN to outperform BTC anytime soon, I think. That's another reason why, even if you're a Bitcoin maximalist, I think you have a hard time buying GRIN over BTC, for example. Lots of volume in this range. It's basically been flat since May. But again, it's got this bleed. You do not want to see this bleed if you're bullish. This slow march down, this slow grind down, that's just, you know, one seller every day, more than there was the other day. That's really what that represents. And you want volatility. You do not want minus 2% days, minus 5% days every day for 6 months. You don't want that at all. So overall, I do expect this to make new all-time lows, just like the USD price. And if crypto collectively begins a retracement, GRIN will have a bigger retracement, definitely, over the next 6 to 12 months.